I walked across that stage alone, my name bouncing off the walls of a packed auditorium full of families that weren't mine. 4 empty seats in the third row sat there like open wounds, mocking every step I took toward that diploma. While I was shaking the university president's hand, my parents were 20 miles away in our living room, wings and nachos spread across the coffee table, screaming at a television screen. It was March Madness, the championship game. The one night of the year my dad had circled on the calendar since January. The same night I'd reminded them about, over and over, for 6 months straight. I made it to the parking garage before the first tear fell. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my diploma twice trying to unlock my car. That's when I heard it, the buzzing in my purse. Text after text lighting up my phone. I thought maybe they were apologizing, maybe explaining they got stuck in traffic or my mom's migraines had come back. Instead, it was photos. My dad with his arm around my brother Brandon, both of them holding up beers. My mom's famous 7-layer dip in a close-up shot with the caption "Game Day Perfection." Brandon's girlfriend doing a silly dance in the background. And then the worst one, all 4 of them, Mom, Dad, Brandon, and Kayla, posing in front of the TV, the scoreboard visible behind their smiling faces. Not one text said congratulations. Not one mentioned my name. I sat in my Honda Civic in that cold concrete garage, still wearing my cap and gown, and something inside me just cracked wide open. I'd spent 8 years getting this degree, 8 years of community college night classes while working full-time at the bank, transferring to finish my bachelor's at State, living on 3 hours of sleep and vending machine dinners. I did it because they told me education mattered, that they'd be proud, that one day it would all be worth it. But sitting there with my phone full of their party pictures and my chest full of something that felt like drowning, I finally understood the truth. They were never going to choose me. Not over a game. Not over their convenience. Not over anything that mattered more to them in the moment. I didn't know it yet, but the decision I was about to make would split my life into before and after. My name is Rebecca, most people call me Becca, and that morning started the way so many others had, with me convincing myself things would be different this time. I woke up at 5:30, even though the ceremony wasn't until 2 in the afternoon. Couldn't sleep. My apartment was quiet except for the coffee maker gurgling in the kitchen and the sound of my own breathing, quick and nervous. I'd hung my cap and gown on the back of the bathroom door the night before, and seeing it there in the early light made everything feel real and terrifying at the same time. I should have known better than to hope. Hope had burned me before, every birthday where they showed up an hour late, every work achievement they forgot to acknowledge, every time I needed them and got excuses instead. But graduation felt different. This was big. This was 8 years of sacrifice tied up with a ribbon. Surely they understood that. I checked my phone while I got dressed. The family group chat, the one Brandon had named the Lawson crew, was blowing up. My dad was arguing about whether Duke's defense could hold in the second half. My mom kept sending recipes she'd found for buffalo chicken sliders. Kayla posted a selfie with the caption "Ready to scream at this TV." Every message felt like a small knife. I kept waiting for someone to say something, anything, about the ceremony. About me. The silence was deafening. I texted them anyway, heading to campus soon. Ceremony starts at 2. You guys leaving soon? 3 dots appeared under my mom's name, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Then nothing. 20 minutes passed. My dad finally responded, "Traffic's gonna be rough with the game and all. We'll see. We'll see." 2 words that meant everything and nothing. I told myself to breathe. Told myself they'd figure it out. Told myself I mattered enough for them to figure it out. The university auditorium was massive, one of those old buildings with vaulted ceilings and wooden seats that creaked when you moved. Families were everywhere, crying grandmas, dads with their cameras out, little kids waving signs that said "Congratulations, graduate." I found my section, checked my phone again. Nothing new. The usher came by with reserved seat cards, and I gave her my family's names. She smiled and placed 4 cards on the seats in the 3rd row. "They must be so proud," she said. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. Those 4 empty seats stared back at me like they knew something I was still refusing to admit. When I finally got home that night, I didn't cry anymore. I'd used up all my tears in that parking garage. Instead, I felt numb, like someone had wrapped my entire body in cotton. I threw my cap in the corner and hung the gown over a chair. The apartment was dark. I didn't bother turning on lights. I just sat on my couch with my phone in my lap, staring at the diploma I'd left on the coffee table. 8 years. $40,000 in student loans. Hundreds of late nights and missed weekends. And for what? So I could walk across a stage alone while my family ate nachos? My phone buzzed. My Aunt Patricia. Saw some photos from the ceremony online. You looked beautiful, honey. So proud of you. She lived in Phoenix, too far to make the trip, but she'd sent flowers to my apartment that morning. White roses with a card that said you did it. They were sitting on my kitchen counter, the only proof that someone in my family gave a damn. I typed back a thank you, then sat there in the dark for another hour, just thinking. Or maybe not thinking. Maybe just existing in that space between anger and heartbreak where everything goes quiet. Around 10 o'clock, my phone rang. My mom. I stared at her name on the screen, watched it buzz and buzz against my palm. Part of me wanted to answer. Part of me wanted to scream. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, a text came through. Becca, call me back. We need to talk about something important. Not sorry we missed your graduation. Not we made a terrible mistake. Just we need to talk about something important. I knew what that meant. I'd heard those words before. It meant they wanted something. Money, usually. Help with a bill or a car payment or some emergency that never quite added up. I was the responsible one, the one with the steady job at the bank, the one who never said no even when no was the only sane answer. I thought about calling her back. I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Then I opened my banking app instead, the kind of impulse that comes from pure exhaustion, and looked at the transaction history. Rent. Groceries. Student loan payment. And there, 3 days ago, a Venmo I'd sent my dad for $300. Car repair, he'd said. Just until payday. Something clicked in my brain. I opened Venmo and scrolled back through the months. February, $200 to my mom for groceries. January, $400 to Brandon for insurance. December, $500 to my dad again, heating bill emergency. The numbers kept going, stretching back through autumn, through summer, all the way to last spring. $7,000. I'd sent my family $7,000 in a year. And tonight, the night of my graduation, they'd chosen a basketball game instead of me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the radiator clank and feeling something shift inside me, something that had been bending for years finally snapping clean through. When the sun came up, I was already dressed. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and did something I'd been too afraid to do for months. I looked at flights. Just looked. That's what I told myself. I wasn't actually going anywhere. I was just looking. There was this wellness retreat in Sedona I'd bookmarked a year ago. One of those places with yoga at sunrise and meditation in Red Rock canyons, the kind of thing people with actual lives did when they needed to reset. I'd saved the link in a folder called Someday, which really meant never. I had too many responsibilities. My family needed me. Work needed me. I couldn't just disappear for a week. But sitting there in my kitchen with my cold coffee and my empty apartment and the weight of last night pressing down on my shoulders, I thought, why not? Why couldn't I disappear? What was actually stopping me except guilt and habit and the fear that if I stopped holding everything together, it would all fall apart? The website showed availability for the next weekend. 7 days. Private casita. All meals included. Hiking, art therapy, something called radical self-discovery workshops. It cost more than I usually spent in a month. I clicked book now before I could change my mind. The confirmation email arrived 30 seconds later. I stared at it, my heart pounding like I'd just committed a crime. Maybe I had. The crime of choosing myself for once. The crime of being unavailable when they inevitably needed something. I forwarded the confirmation to my personal email, then my work email, then saved a screenshot in 3 different places like I was afraid it might vanish. Then I called my boss and used up the vacation days I'd been hoarding for 2 years. She sounded surprised. I never took time off, but she approved it without questions. Then came the hard part. I opened the family group chat and typed, I'm taking a trip. Need some time alone. I'll be out of touch for a week. I hit send before I could soften it, before I could apologize or explain or make it easier for them to guilt me into staying. My mom responded in 45 seconds. A trip? Where? Why didn't you tell us? We were going to come over today to celebrate. My jaw clenched. Celebrate. 24 hours late. I didn't respond. Brandon sent 3 question marks. My dad wrote, Becca, what's going on? We need to talk about something. There it was again. We need to talk. We need. Sedona was a different planet. Red rocks glowing like they were lit from inside, sky so blue it hurt to look at, air that smelled like sage and juniper and something clean I couldn't name. My casita overlooked a canyon, and the first thing I did after unpacking was stand on the little patio and just breathe. Deep breaths. The kind I hadn't taken in years. No phone buzzing. No one asking for anything. Just wind and silence and the strange, uncomfortable feeling of being completely alone with myself. The retreat had a policy: minimal phone usage. They encouraged you to lock your cell in the room safe and only check it once a day. I lasted about 6 hours before I caved. Habit, maybe. Or fear. When I finally opened my messages, there were 32 texts waiting. My mom asking where I was staying, if I was safe, why I was acting like this. Brandon demanding I call him immediately. My dad's messages got progressively more annoyed. Becca, this is ridiculous. Your mother is worried sick. We need you to send some money for the mortgage. It's urgent. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that last message. The mortgage. They owned that house outright. My grandparents had left it to them 15 years ago. There was no mortgage. I scrolled back through my dad's texts, looking for other things that didn't add up. The car repair. Brandon's insurance. My mom's grocery emergencies. How many of those had been real? How many times had I just handed over money without asking questions because I was too tired to fight? That's when I saw the email from Aunt Patricia. Honey, I don't want to worry you, but have you checked your credit report recently? Your mom mentioned something last Christmas about opening a store card in your name. I thought you should know. My stomach dropped. I opened Credit Karma with shaking hands. The screen loaded slowly, spinning and spinning, and then there it was. 3 credit cards I'd never applied for. A personal loan from some predatory lender I'd never heard of. All of them opened in the last 8 months. All of them in my name. Total balance, $23,000. I couldn't breathe. The casita walls felt like they were closing in. I stood up, sat down, stood up again. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped my phone. They'd stolen my identity. My own family. Used my social security number, my birthday, my address. Every emergency, every urgent request. It hadn't been enough to just take my money. They'd taken my future too. I thought about calling my mom, demanding an explanation. But I already knew what she'd say. It was just temporary. We were going to pay it back. Your family helps each other. I called Aunt Patricia instead. She answered on the first ring. You saw it. Her voice was gentle, like she'd been expecting this. Becca, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. We talked for an hour. She explained that my mom had been bragging about it at Christmas, laughing about how easy it was to get credit in someone else's name if you had their information. She said you'd never notice because you were so busy, Patricia told me. She said you owed them after everything they'd done for you. I hung up and sat in the desert silence, watching the sun set over the red rocks, and felt something inside me harden into clarity. I came back to Philadelphia on a Sunday afternoon. The flight felt longer than it was, every mile pulling me back toward a city I wasn't sure I wanted to call home anymore. I'd spent the last 3 days of the retreat meeting with a lawyer Patricia had connected me with, someone who specialized in identity theft and family fraud. She'd been calm, professional, matter-of-fact. Document everything, she'd said. Screenshots, bank statements, text messages. Build your case before you confront them. So I had. I'd spent hours in my casita, building a timeline of every lie, every fake emergency, every dollar they'd taken. My apartment felt smaller when I walked in. The flowers from Patricia had wilted on the counter. My cap and gown were still where I'd thrown them. I dropped my suitcase in the bedroom and checked my phone. 4 to 7 missed calls. 63 texts. 3 voicemails from my dad that got progressively angrier. The last one said, "Fine. If you're going to ignore us, don't come crying when you need help." I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Then I blocked their numbers. All of them. Just like that. One tap, then another, then another. The silence that followed felt like relief and terror in equal measure. Tuesday morning, I met with the lawyer in person. Her office was downtown, one of those glass buildings where everyone wore expensive suits and walked fast. She reviewed my documents, nodding occasionally, making notes. When she finished, she looked up at me. "This is prosecutable," she said. "Clear identity theft. Fraud. You have enough here for both criminal and civil action." I sat very still, processing that. Criminal action meant police. It meant charges. It meant my parents could go to jail. "I know that's a lot," she continued. "And I can't tell you what to do. But I can tell you that protecting yourself isn't betraying your family. It's surviving them." That night, I drafted an email. Not to my parents, to a detective Patricia had put me in touch with, someone who worked financial crimes in the Philadelphia PD. I attached every screenshot, every statement, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. My hands shook while I typed. The subject line just said, "Identity Theft Report." I hovered over the send button for 10 minutes, thinking about all the ways this would blow up my life. Then I thought about those empty seats at my graduation. The $23,000 in debt I didn't create. The $7,000 I'd sent them in good faith while they were robbing me blind. I hit send. The email disappeared into the void. There was no taking it back now. The detective called me Thursday morning. "Ms. Lawson, I've reviewed your case. We'd like to move forward. Can you come in and give a formal statement?" I took a personal day from work and spent 3 hours in a windowless room at the precinct, walking a patient officer through every detail. She recorded everything, asked me to sign papers, explained what would happen next. "We'll issue warrants," she said. "Your parents and brother will be arrested and charged. Do you have somewhere safe to stay in case they try to contact you?" I thought about my apartment, about how my dad had a key from when I'd had surgery last year. "I'll figure something out," I said. But I already knew. I was done figuring things out alone. The call came at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. "Ms. Lawson? This is Detective Kim. We've executed the warrants. Your father, mother, and brother are in custody." I sat up in bed at the hotel where I'd been staying, my heart hammering. "Okay," I said, though nothing about this was okay. "What happens now?" She explained the arraignment process, the possibility of a trial, the restraining order I should file immediately. I thanked her and hung up, then sat in the dark hotel room feeling like I'd just detonated a bomb in the middle of my own life. I waited for the guilt to come. It didn't. Instead, I felt something lighter. Something like freedom. By Monday, it was all over the local news. Family charged in identity theft scheme against daughter. My phone started ringing again. Extended family, old friends, people I hadn't talked to in years. Most of them wanted the story. Some of them wanted to tell me I'd gone too far. My cousin Ashley left me a voicemail calling me vindictive. My Uncle Dave sent a text that just said you should be ashamed. I blocked them too. Patricia called every day, just to check in. "You did the right thing," she kept saying. "Even when the right thing feels terrible, it's still right." The trial happened fast. They'd been caught so completely that fighting the charges didn't make sense. My dad took a plea deal. So did my mom and Brandon. Restitution, probation, community service. No jail time, but their records would follow them forever. The judge granted my restraining order without hesitation. 100 yards. They couldn't call, text, email, or come anywhere near me. For the first time in my adult life, I had legal protection from my own family. The courtroom was packed with relatives who'd come to support my parents, shooting me looks that could kill. I sat alone on my side, Patricia beside me for moral support, and didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. The following month, something unexpected happened. A local women's business group reached out. They wanted me to speak at their annual conference. "Your story matters," the organizer said. "So many women sacrifice themselves for families who don't appreciate them. You showing up for yourself? That's powerful." I almost said no. Public speaking terrified me. But Patricia's voice echoed in my head. "Your voice could help someone who thinks they're alone." So I said yes. The conference was at the downtown Marriott, 200 women in business attire filling a ballroom that smelled like coffee and ambition. I stood backstage, sweating through my blouse, my note cards shaking in my hands. When they called my name, I walked to the podium on legs that felt like they might give out any second. The spotlight was bright. Everyone was watching. I opened my mouth to speak. That's when the back doors slammed open. My father's voice cut through the room like a blade. "That's my daughter." Heads whipped around. Security started moving. But my dad was already halfway down the aisle, my mom and Brandon behind him. "She destroyed our family," he was shouting. "Sent us to court over misunderstanding. She's making money off lying about us." The audience erupted in confused murmurs. Someone's phone started recording. My mom was crying, her practiced devastation on full display. "Becca, please," she called out. "We just want to talk. We're your family." Every instinct screamed at me to run, to shrink, to apologize. But I stood there at that podium, microphone in hand, and felt something crystallize inside me. I looked at the security guards. "They have a restraining order against them," I said clearly. "Please remove them." My dad's face went purple. "A restraining order? Against your own parents?" But security was already moving in. As they were escorted out, my dad still yelling, my mom still crying, Brandon filming everything like it was content for his Instagram, the room fell silent. I turned back to the audience. 200 faces staring at me, waiting. I took a breath. "I was going to start with a story about budgeting," I said. "But I think we just saw something more important. What happens when the people who are supposed to love you become the biggest threat to your stability? And what it takes to walk away." Then I told them everything. The empty seats at graduation. The stealing. The fraud. The moment in Sedona when I finally chose myself. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I just spoke the truth plainly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. When I finished, the room was silent for one long breath. Then they stood, all of them, 200 women on their feet, applause washing over me like a wave. Not because they pitied me, but because they recognized something in my story. The courage it takes to protect yourself from people who are supposed to protect you. I stood there in that spotlight, diploma finally meaning something, and realized I wasn't alone anymore. I'd saved myself. And maybe, just maybe, my story could give someone else permission to do the same.